Anyway, our first caller tonight, Royce, my man from Tip Top Tottenham, my favourite microphone of all. How are you feeling after that, mate? And did you get out of work able to watch it?
Yes, I was able to watch the whole game. To be honest, I'm a little bit disappointed. I feel like those are the type of games where you would really want to have 3 points.
Sure.
I wanted one of the things that I wanted to mention was that I know it started at 8:15 p.m. you guys' time. And I feel like a lot of the later games, I don't know what it is. We just don't play as well for whatever reason. Um, maybe because we've had to sit and think about the game the whole day. But personally, I'm just a little bit frustrated with how it went. I wanted to also mention that I feel like in the first halves of games, in every football match that I watch, essentially, fouls and yellow cards aren't given as much.
No, it's true.
Yep.
And you know, even it could be an identical foul, you know, in minute 33 and versus minute 83. Like, it's probably going to be a yellow card on the 83rd minute much more of the time. And I thought Lucas Paqueta in general, the Brazilian midfielder for West Ham, had maybe four fouls total.
Yeah.
And at least one or two of them, in my opinion, was a yellow card offense in the first half. And I was just really annoyed that, you know, I felt like there's some fouls sometimes that are given in the first half that aren't given in the second half. Or I'm sorry, vice versa of what I just said.
Yeah.
But,
Look, I completely agree. And I personally think the reason for that usually is that, especially in these kind of big London derbies where there's a big kind of crowd, a baying crowd sometimes, referees go into it by talking with each other and their colleagues and being like, okay, we're not going to give a yellow card early because it will incite the players and incite the crowd, and it could become something that we can't keep control of. That's something, I don't know if you remember the Battle of the Bridge in 15-16 at Chelsea, and basically Spurs should have had about 6 men sent off that night, but Mark Clattenburg had made a decision. He's talked about in his book. He made a decision that he wasn't going to book anyone, and as a result, like
warfare,
it was warfare. It was like Lamella was standing on Hazard's hand, Moussa Dembele gouged Costa's eye.
I loved it.
It was honestly, it was such a disappointing night in the end, but also it was the least Spurs performance in my whole lifetime, where actually we showed some real grit. But yeah, that's the reason I think that happens. What about in terms of our play, Royce? Like, obviously West Ham really kind of parked the bus, but who impressed you for Spurs tonight?
So it was so unusual watching the game today, seeing us score so early and take the lead, to be honest, because I felt like in the past few games it hasn't really been like that. But I was a person who had thought that Brennan, you know, was best off the bench, and maybe he still is with the options that we have on the squad right now. But when he scored, basically immediately as he came on, I was like, wow, this is amazing. And so maybe that can, make me believe that he could be a good option as a starter just as he continues to progress. And it's important to realize, I think, that he's so young. And a lot of people who I've talked with in the Spurs community weren't necessarily happy with the signing, you know, especially when you consider what the price tag was at the time.
Yeah.
But I've always kind of been in the camp where I've thought that if we give him time, you know, he really could be a special player, because there's certain things you can't teach, and pace is one of them. And he's also proven to be really, really good on first time finishes and first time crosses as well.
Yeah.
I had mentioned today when he had scored, I was like, how many goals? I feel like there's probably been way, way more, if not all of his goals that he scored this season have been first time on his first touch. So I really am happy to see that he scored today. Obviously, I wanted my guy Saad to score really bad. That didn't happen for me, but
he didn't really get chances today, Sonny, did he?
He didn't.
Played out the
I
game
think
a bit.
He knew, and I think he had that one chance. It was like maybe midway through the first half, where he had a really good, a little bit of space anyway, and he knew once that the goalkeeper caught it, that he really that was a big opening for him, and he's such a threat. You know, opposing sides, I'm sure as they're watching tape throughout the week, video. They're like, this guy is on such good form right now. We have to stick to him as close as we can whenever he's on the ball. We can't give him any space. So I agree completely with what you said.
Yeah, and Amir, you were saying that you thought Brennan Johnson played well today. And I just wanted to add one more thing about Brennan Johnson. Getting a lot of stick from the Spurs, kind of what I call the negative Spurs corner of the fan base, saying that he hadn't scored against any kind of top 7 teams and hadn't made an assist against any blah blah. And it's like, if you look at Man City's stats against the top 5 teams over the last 2 seasons, they've hardly won any games. Like, the games against the big teams are difficult. And Brennan Johnson, I think, has done really, really impressively. And what I loved today, and I mean, maybe you talk a bit more about this as well, I felt like for the first time today, we saw him confident enough to actually drive through the middle of the pitch as well, really run at defenders, and that gave space elsewhere. And if he continues with that confidence, he will become a mega, mega threat for Spurs in terms of not only on his own, but opening up space for other players as well.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's even more than just the way he's driving at players. It's the effectiveness he has in terms of goals and assists. If you're looking at his minutes per goal and his assists per minutes and all those kind of stats, I'm sure he's doing fantastically well. Because since he's come in and since he gets the minutes off the bench, he's come in and he's affected games. So for me, yeah, Johnson was, well worthy of a special mention. I'd just like to know there from Royce, who else in that team today deserves a special mention apart from Johnson?
Yes, and I just want to add, I have somebody in mind to the answer to your question, Amir, but I do want to just mention one last thing with Johnson that,
of course,
I think one thing, I had mentioned how everything is first time with him, and it kind of came to me just now that is a really, really, honestly, incredible combination when you consider his pace. He's very decisive, I feel. When the ball is coming to him, I feel like, the reason that he's been able to get so many goals and assists is because he has the pace to be able to get the separation to, make the decision.
Definitely.
And then when he's in the moment, he's like, okay, I know exactly, it's obviously right in front of me. I've made a great run, and now, it's my turn to take the shot, or I know exactly where I'm going to cross it to, or, where, either the opposite winger is making the run to the back post, or where the striker is, and if he has a little bit of space. So I think that, yes, I think that's really a good attribute set, sort of the decisiveness and pace of Brennan Johnson. But I had thought, Barnaby, when I was listening to you guys on the reaction, I completely agree with what you said about Udogie, or Udogie. Apologies, I have mispronounced his name often.
Oh, we all do that.
Apologies. But yes, I mean, he's such a joy to watch at left back.
Jeez.
Porro, I thought, played really, really well.
Agreed.
Also, I just think it's such a treat that we now have, because they're different players, obviously, but playing mirrored positions, and they both have different attributes that really complement each other in ways. Especially, it was. I want to be the biggest Dragusin supporter just because he was an Ange signing, and he has the physical attributes, it seems, to make a real impact on our team. But to see Van de Ven out there today, he is quality. He is quality.
Different levels.
It's bizarre almost how quickly, it was just like immediate, straight away. Van de Ven, it was obvious to everyone that he's going to be that guy for a long time. So I feel like Van de Ven, but to say he deserves a shout is evident, but that's just him. That's just him. He was incredible to watch today.
Oh, he was. I think there was times where I was saying he's Maldini-esque. The kind of, when he's running in behind, you don't even get worried. You're like, okay, he's going to nick it off Antonio, So yeah, I'd agree with you when it comes to Mickey. How do you feel about Turbo Timo and his performance? How do you think he got on today?
I thought he played well in the first half, more than the second half. I feel like, and obviously you could see that by Ange's sub. I think that kind of speaks to maybe that point. But he was the person, obviously, to create the move of Brennan's goal. And how many times have we seen him, cross it in, get a little bit of separation from the right back, and, where he can cross in on his left foot, and it bends, he's really, really close to the touchline sometimes, but he gets really, really close, and it comes back and finds either, Son or Brennan or whoever the other winger is. So I definitely can't say that he played bad by any means. I don't think he played bad, but I just don't think he was spectacular. I don't think, unfortunately, anybody in our front line was really spectacular today, but that's mostly due to West Ham.
Agreed.
I feel like once they got that second, or once they got the equalizer, they were really, really happy to settle for a point.
Yeah.
Which is, I guess maybe you could expect them to do, but I wouldn't be happy if I was them, considering that it was at home. But anyway, I guess that's a different conversation.
But Royce, you must remember what that was like, because that's what we were playing for the last 18 months before Conte had his big outburst.
No, man, we don't want to remember that outburst.
Royce, let's move on then to Nottingham Forest Sunday evening game. How do you feel about that one? Obviously, Aston Villa. So we're 2 points behind Villa now, still with same amount of games, but they play tomorrow night away at the Etihad. Right. You'd think that Man City will find a way. It wouldn't surprise me at all tomorrow night if Villa went ahead in that game. But I think City will find a way to win that. And then, so that would be 2 points with us with a game in hand. Forest. You think Forest will come to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium and basically try and play the same way West Ham did, and it'll be another tough one for us?
I would essentially guess that would be the case. Yes, I think maybe because, Nuno obviously was our manager for a little bit, that he may, try and come after us and really spend as much time watching, video on us to come up with the best tactics.
Yeah, he'll want it, won't he? That's a good point. He'll really want it. And also, actually, just as a bit of a throwback, he came to Wembley when Spurs were playing at Wembley with Wolves and turned us over then. So he's got a bit of previous against us.
And he'll know how to play.
I would say, mostly he's considered as a really defensive manager. So you would assume, like you had said, that he's probably going to park the bus similar to the majority of the game that West Ham did today. But, obviously at home, I'm always backing the lads. I'm always backing the Lily Whites. I feel like we always kind of show up for home games. And I think that's a really, really good – that's one of my favorite traits, I think, about Tottenham is that we really, tend to try and protect our home ground as much as we can. And I think Ange, he may be thinking about it a little bit as well, that he really wants to beat Nuno, knowing that he was the previous manager of Tottenham Hotspur. Maybe Ange didn't think about that at all. Maybe he wouldn't. Maybe. But I know he's an incredibly competitive person, and I am in some ways, and so that thought may have crossed my mind if I was in his position.
Yeah, of course. Okay, Royce, thank you so much for calling in. But just before you go, prediction for scoreline against Forest on Sunday night.
I want to say 3-0 because Vicario so desperately deserves his clean sheet. But I'll say 3-1. I'll say 3-1.
3-1.
He knows we're going to concede from a corner.
Well, actually, yeah, so Amir rightly said, just because we know we're going to concede from a corner. Well, what I was actually going to say just to end this was, you can bet your bottom dollar that Chris Wood will be standing on Vicario at every corner on Sunday night, and it'll be absolutely kittens in this studio as we're watching it happen, with Hudson-Odoi whipping them in, I would have thought.
Just don't give us anything that we can throw at any screens here in the studio.
It's probably the most irritating thing in the world to watch as a Tottenham fan this season, seeing Vicario get basically shoved into his own goal.
It's ridiculous, isn't it, Royce? It's ridiculous. And I was saying to Barnaby, why is he not just shoving them out the way and just get out of my way? Move.
Yeah, he's a bit meek when it comes to that. You need to be a bit more aggressive in the Premier League.
Aggressive. Can't let that ball come into the 6-yard box.
Yeah. But anyway,
it's so competitive.
Yeah,
if they can take advantage of, they will. That's all I was just going to say.
Yeah.
God bless you, Yunmin San. I hope you guys have a great day.
And thank you, Royce. Thanks so much. We'll speak to you hopefully after Forest. Guys, make sure you go and give Tip Top Tottenham a subscribe as well. Top man and
thank you guys
nice
so much.
And positive. No problem.
Thank you, mate. Cheers.